everyone, I'm Miss Lydia from the Boston Library. Thank you for joining me for our craft video today. Today we are making Valentine's decorations. So our first project is this heart here. The supplies that you need for this are either a piece of white cardboard or a canvas board. I have a canvas board here. You can use any size that you want, so you can make these much smaller or much larger if you'd like to. You need a heart template to use, some scissors, and then several different colors of pink cardstock. You can use construction paper or regular paper as well. The cardstock holds up the best to the folding technique that you need to use for this. The other thing that is extremely helpful in this project are glue dots. You can use regular glue or hot glue for this project as well. The glue dots are going to make it much simpler. Our first step is to get our canvas ready to go. So whatever you're using as your background, you want to make sure that it's strong enough that it will hold up to a lot of paper on top of it. And then you're going to size your heart for that. Then you can just center your heart template on your canvas and trace it out. Once you've got your heart traced on here, you can set that aside. Now you need to prepare all of your flowers for this. What I found is that using a single sheet of cardstock, I can usually get 4 flowers out of them. You're going to make your flowers different sizes. It creates more interest on the project. You can make them all the same size, but it's actually easier to vary the sizes. So in order to get 4 flowers out of this piece of paper, I'm going to cut it unevenly. This isn't an exact science, so you can really just kind of eyeball this. So I'm going to cut it not quite in half there, sort of one side that's a little bit smaller than the other. And then the same thing with this. I'm going to cut it but not quite in half. This one I'm going to cut in half, approximately. And then I have 4 sheets of paper. Then what I'm going to do is cut out, again, just eyeballing it, circles that fit inside each of these. They do not need to be perfect circles. So then you have 4 circles, 1 small, 2 that are approximately the same size, and 1 larger. You're going to cut a spiral in each circle. Again, the spirals don't need to be perfect. These are fairly forgiving. You're going to basically start at one end and you're going to cut in. You want to start it fairly narrow, and then you're going to slowly get wider as you spiral your way towards the center. Then I'm going to keep going as I get towards the center, and I'm going to create kind of a tiny little foot at the end, and that will be the base. You may end up with a little crook here. If it bothers you, you can cut it out. It doesn't usually show up actually in the flower. My next step, once I have that spiral cut, is to slowly turn this in on itself. The tip is the hardest part to get started. You're just going to continue to roll this all the way to the center. You're going to kind of get a cone shape, so you want to keep this side here a little bit tighter. It's going to start to flare out towards this side as you go around your spiral. Again, you don't have to be too careful with this. You just want to make sure that you're not folding it. You don't want it to be square or flat. You want it to be a circular spin. Once you get to the end, you're going to kind of spin it around, and then you can let it open back up a bit, and you'll get what looks like a flower. You can set that aside, but you can also, at this point, you can take 1 glue dot. You take a glue dot, you're going to put it right on that foot, facing up towards the rest of your flower. And then you can use that to secure your flower. So you can just push right down in the center, and then you'll end up with a flower that looks like that. You're going to repeat that process a bunch of times. Depending on the size of your heart, you're going to need approximately 20 or more of these flowers cut. Different sizes, so if you make a bunch of big circles, you're not going to need as many. If you make a bunch of smaller flowers, you're going to need more of them. I find that you get the best effect if you vary those sizes. It's going to be the most dimensional, and you'll also be able to fill in the spaces if you have some of those smaller flowers. If you have any trouble getting the entire flower to stick down to a single glue dot, you can always sneak in another glue dot about halfway up. You're going to go from the bottom side, sneak it in, and stick it back down that way. Once you have all of your flowers ready, you're going to grab your canvas with your heart template again, and then also using your glue dots, you're going to put a glue dot on the bottom of your flower and stick that onto the canvas. And you're just going to fill in all the way around your heart. As you're filling your heart in, this is where those different sizes really come in handy. You can mix and match bigger and smaller flowers and fill in any gaps that show up as you're making this template. You also want to make sure that you're varying your colors. You don't want to put all of the same color in one spot. Once you're finished placing your flowers, you'll get a product that looks like that. These flowers will work on a lot of different projects too. You can stick them on a stem, on a popsicle stick, on cards. Same technique. You can make them in any color that you like as well. Our second project involves making a heart wreath. So we're going to use some coffee filters for this. Again, a piece of white cardboard, or you can use regular cardboard for this as well. You just want something, again, that's strong enough. So I have a heart cutting board that I'm actually going to use as my template. You want something about this size or a little bit larger. And what I'm going to do is set that down on my white cardboard and trace it out. I'm also going to use that template that I used for the last project for the inside of my wreath. I'm going to center that and I'm going to trace that out as well. Once I have both of those things traced out, I'm going to cut the outside, and then I'm going to use an X-Acto knife to cut the inside out as well. Eventually you'll end up with a heart template that looks like this. Don't worry too much if it's not perfectly even. Once you add the ruffles of the filters, you won't notice that. This is also a good time to add your hanger. So I'm going to use a piece of string and I'm going to punch a hole right in the top and tie that right around. Make sure you punch your hole far enough into it that it's going to hold. You don't want it too close to the edge or it will pull right through. At this point, I'm going to set my template aside, move my cutting board, and I'm going to dye my coffee filters. You can use them white, you can make them any color that you'd like, but for our Valentine's decoration, I'm going to use a little bit of water and some red food coloring. So I have a small dish of water. I'm going to add probably 5 to 10 drops of red. It depends on how red you want them. And then I'm going to take a small stack. You're going to want to dye a lot of these, but you can start with a small stack. And you're just going to stick them right into the water. You can let that kind of just rise up. They don't have to come all the way up. And then you can test it and you can see if you think that color is going to be dark enough. Once you have the dye moving up the coffee filter, you need to remove it from the water and dry it. I'm going to take a piece of tin foil on my bottom layer, then I'm going to layer some paper towels above that and I'm going to lay these flat to dry. Once they are completely dry, you can move on to the next step. If you feel like this color is not quite dark enough, you can continue to add more of the food coloring. You can also very gently squeeze them out so that they don't take as long to dry. Just remember that that food coloring might stain your hands. It's okay if you end up with a white center. It actually kind of has a cool effect in the final flower. You just want most of the edges to be colored. Once my filters are fully dry, I'm going to make them into flowers. So the easiest way I found to do this is to fold your filter in half and then in half again. So I have it in quarter, kind of a triangle shape there. And then I'm just going to kind of randomly fold it in so that it ends up with a shape like this. Then I'm going to twist it just lightly and fold that top back. Then you can kind of spread that out so that it looks more like a flower. Again, don't get too particular on this. It will be very forgiving because you're going to be using a lot of them. I'm going to do this with a bunch of coffee filters. You want to have enough of these flowers made up to cover this entirely. Once you have a giant stack of flowers, you're going to start attaching them to your wreath. So my flowers I have looking like this. I've twisted up that end so that they're a little shorter to work with. I'm going to take the same glue dots that I was using on the last project. Again, you can use regular glue or hot glue. And I'm going to stick them to my wreath template, and then I'm going to place a flower down. You could alternately, you can do this individually, or you can just stick a whole bunch of glue dots down and then stick a bunch of flowers down as well. You want your glue dots and flowers spaced closely together enough that you're covering your entire template. As you start to attach them, you can kind of fluff those flowers out just a little bit to spread them a bit more. The easiest way I've found to place these on is to basically stagger them back and forth. So I'm taking a glue dot, sticking it at the base of my flower, and then I'm going just under the layer before it. And I'll put one on one side, and then do the same thing and stick it slightly to the other side. That way I'm working forward in kind of a staggered step form. Once you're done, you can go around and open those flowers up, move them, add additional glue dots if you need to get everything spaced the way that you want. And there's your final product. I hope you enjoyed our Valentine's crafts. If you have any questions, please comment below and we will try to help you out. We will see you again next week for another project. Happy Valentine's Day.